Welcome to Harry Parody. I invite you to stay while I read nonsense to you for a substantial amount of time. Have a look at the description box. Depending on which website you're using, its location will vary. Download the audio file too and share it with your friends, family, coworkers, kittens, rivals, strange hobos. Just please don't monetize it or claim it as your own, because it's not. Disclaimer. 1. The drug usage in this series has not been researched and is factually inaccurate for the sake of comedy. Do not do drugs. 2. I do not dislike the series Harry Potter. I wish to only create comedy and entertainment by bringing insanity into the series. 3. I do not own the majority of the characters in this series. However, I have written the series, thus I own Harry Parody. 4. Please at least watch the movies before listening and or reading the series. The more you know about Harry Potter, the more you will enjoy Harry Parody. Browse the wiki, that's what I've been doing. With that, we will begin. Harry Potter and His Pet Rock, Memoir by Harry Potter, read by his publicist, Sprinkle. Chapter 1. Hey look, magic exists. Under an escalator lived a boy named Harry Potter. Since his parents didn't have enough room for him, they made him live under the staircase. They knew it sounded horrible, so they tried to make it sound cool. They would tell Harry that it was an Amish escalator. It seemed to work. For 11 years he's lived under that escalator, all while his parents saved to expand their house and give Harry the room he deserves. It broke their heart to watch him crawl out of his cupboard every morning and get ready for school. Mr. Potter had installed some shelves and tried to keep the spiders out as best he could, but it was a losing battle. Harry always put on his round glasses and walked to the kitchen to eat breakfast without ever complaining. On his way to school one morning, the huge man who had arrived in town a few weeks ago called for Harry's attention. No one but Harry ever went near him. To everyone else, this tall man is a creepy guy who sleeps under a bridge. To Harry, he's a wise role model. "You're a wizard!" the massive man yelled. "You're able to go through brick walls to get to platform 9 3/4. Harry rushed over to him and found out about muggles and other wizardly things. He learned more about platform 9 3/4 and decided it must be a test. The test consisted of a human and a brick wall. If you could go through the brick wall, then you're a wizard. Harry decided to take the test. He walked around Godric's Hollow until he found a brick building that had fit his standards. He examined the rough red bricks and patted the wall. After nodding, he turned around and took 10 steps. Then he turned back to the wall and bolted forward as fast as he could. He believed he could do it. He believed that so much that in his mind he did do it. He went through the wall. That means he's a wizard. He had been on his way to school, but he knew it wasn't as important as his amazing news. He ran home and found his parents. The Potters didn't have steady jobs, as Mr. Potter had inherited his family's fortune. However, it was running out. Lily Potter was cleaning the kitchen while James Potter was reading the Getting Closer to Almost Daily Profit and drinking coffee. Harry burst through the door with a thud. His parents looked towards him, worried why he wasn't on his way to school. "I'm a wizard!" he exclaimed out of breath from running all the way home. They noticed his broken glasses, bruises, and dirt. They looked towards each other wearily. Their gazes returned to Harry before Mrs. Potter spoke. You're a what?" "Fear not, dear Muggle family. I shall use my wizardry power for good and not evil," he declared while looking into the distance. "What's a Muggle?" Mr. Potter asked as his concerned hazel eyes landed on Harry. Ignoring her husband's question, Mrs. Potter asked her own. "Harry, are you feeling all right? What happened to you?" "Dear citizen, I will educate you of my backstory. A half-giant told me that I am a wizard. I then took the wizard test and passed. I passed right through that brick wall," Harry explained. "Wizards don't exist, Harry. And don't run into brick walls," Mr. Potter said. Mrs. Potter gave her husband a disappointed glare. She started whispering to him. "Don't be so blunt. He must be playing a game. All boys his age have very vivid imaginations." "How many of them run home from school spouting off nonsense about being a wizard?" he whispered back. "It's just a harmless phase." "A harmless phase? Lily, he broke his glasses and is covered in bruises. Not to mention he's missing school." Mrs. Potter nodded in agreement. "The self-harm is bad, but I don't think he has the idea to retake the test, and he only ran home to tell us about the big news." Mr. Potter hesitated before speaking again. "I hope you're right." For weeks they humored him. They played along in hopes he would grow out of this phase. Unfortunately, he never did. He kept waving around twigs and running into brick walls. He was harmful to himself and those around him. Harry kept talking to the supposed half-giant and learned even more ridiculous things. How could this have happened? They kept him away from this line of thought. They tried to protect him. They failed. It wasn't the first time someone in their family had believed they were a wizard. It wasn't even the second or the third. That's why they kept Harry away from the rest of his family. Still, it wasn't enough. They did some research and talked to some other people. Eventually, they decided to talk to Harry's teacher. You know, my son had the same problem. We sent him away to a special school and then he came back good as new. Really? Mrs. Potter asked, her bright green eyes hopeful that this school would be able to help. Oh yeah, this is way more common than you think. It seems almost every child nowadays is starting to believe in magic. It's a responsibility thing, really. There's a big school called Hogwarts. They help children who believe they're wizards by teaching them how to be independent. And I believe they also have a biology program of some sort. That sounds lovely, Mrs. Potter exhaled. How do we sign him up? Mr. Potter asked. The teacher gave them some information and the Potters went to follow the procedures to enroll Harry. Just before bedtime that night, Mrs. Potter decided to tell Harry. In his cupboard, laying on a small feather bed, Harry was holding a gray rock that had fit in the palm of his hand. He got that rock many years ago while on a walk. It was a rainy day, and it seemed like the sun wasn't even trying to shine through the dark clouds. The Potters had been cooped up in the house all day, and Harry had energy to burn. They knew he'd have to go outside at some point. They waited for the rain to become calm, but that never happened. Eventually, they decided not to wait any longer and brought Harry into the stormy weather. There were puddles everywhere and even more mud. It was a recipe for disaster. They brought a large umbrella and wore raincoats and rain boots, rain hats, and even rain pants. They knew they were protected from the standard rain, but Harry was the one they were worried about. He jumped in every puddle, whether it was full of water or mud. As expected, mud got everywhere. Harry didn't mind. He just kept running while his parents prayed he wouldn't slip. Near the end of the walk, Harry was far ahead of his parents. He approached a puddle in the grass next to the sidewalk. He was about to jump in the deep puddle, but stopped last minute as he saw a rock covered by water in the puddle. "He's drowning!" Harry yelled. His parents rushed towards him to see what he was talking about. Harry pointed to the rock and looked like he was about to cry. Mr. Potter bent down and lifted the rock out of the water. He showed Harry that it was okay and gave him the rock to hold. "Can we keep it?" Harry asked. Mr. and Mrs. Potter chuckled at the fact that he was asking as if it was a real animal. They agreed and walked home. Mrs. Potter washed the mud off the rock at the kitchen sink and then gave it back to Harry. Him, in his 4-year-old mind, named the rock Rock. Throughout all these years, he's taken great care of Rock. Even now, he holds it in his hand. Mrs. Potter struggled to find the words to say. When they enrolled him, they were instructed to tell Harry that Hogwarts is a school for wizards to improve their magic. She didn't want to lie to him, but she knew it would be the only way to make him go. "Harry, I know that you think you're a wizard." Some of her long auburn hair fell into her face. "I am a wizard indeed," he said in his announcer-inspired voice that he adopted after getting the crazy idea that he's a wizard. "Yes, well, you've been accepted into a school for wizards." "Aha! I am not only a wizard, but I am also a wizard who is amazing at wizarding." Mrs. Potter stared at him and then clicked off his lantern. She said goodnight and left the cupboard to go sleep on a pull-out sofa that she and her husband bought at a garage sale. Finally, the day arrived. Harry would be getting on a train to leave. He'll get help. It's a good thing, Mrs. Potter told herself. She looked at her son's broken glasses that had been repaired numerous times. Each time there was another brick wall waiting to put them back into a broken state. Mr. Potter had just repaired his glasses the night before, but on the way to King's Cross Station, Harry ran into another brick wall. They waited for the train and tried to keep Harry from running into any other walls. The train arrived and stopped at the station. Harry put Rock in the small pocket of one of his bags. "You'll be safe in there, little citizen," Harry said to the Rock as he closed the pocket. Someone came to get his bags and then put them in a train car. Soon it was time for Harry to board the locomotive. "I will not forget about you, dear Muggle family," he said as he jumped onto the train. He disappeared into the crowd of people who were boarding the train. Harry's parents were hopeful that this school would be able to fix him. Harry raced around the train until he was out of breath. He waited a moment and then began to run around again. He made a lot of noise since he couldn't be happier to be going to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. A few adults started chasing after him. Harry didn't mind them tagging along in his fun, but he soon realized they wanted him to stop. Harry then treated this situation like a high-speed chase. He made his own background music by trying to make the sounds that were similar to electric guitars and drums. Unfortunately for Harry, they caught up with him, and he was told to sit down. He got very angry. Harry's a wizard. No Muggle will tell him what to do. He explained his distaste for the situation, but they wouldn't listen, and they kept telling him to sit down. He thought about putting a curse on them, but decided it wasn't the kind and responsible thing to do. Superheroes don't put curses on people. They send them to prison. One of the adults told Harry that they work at Hogwarts, and that wizards are supposed to be calm and collected. After hearing this, Harry was even more confident in his decision to not curse anyone. He sat down to think about what he was told. The several adults that had been chasing Harry left after he had finally taken a seat. Harry continued to think. He is a wizard. To be a good wizard, he needs to be calm and collected. Harry decided then that he would be the most responsible and powerful wizard ever. He fixed his posture and remained seated. He did not move, talk, or look around. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see that the train had golden brown walls, red chairs, brown flooring, and a red carpet over the aisle. For about 10 minutes, he did nothing but sit and stare at the seat in front of him. After those 10 minutes, he decided that it's okay to be a little bit relaxed. He slouched just a bit and turned his head to look out the window. There were a lot of people walking around, some with luggage and some without, some tall, others short, old, young, slow, fast, energetic, tired. Some carried wands. Of course, muggles think they're twigs. Only wizards who have passed the wizard test can tell the difference. Harry was ecstatic for wizard school. He was sure it would be awesome. He continued to look out the window until someone sat down in front of him. "Yo, dude, what's up?" A rambunctious, red-haired boy jumped around in his seat. "Do I know you, citizen?" Harry boldly asked with his arms bent and fists on his sides. "Nah, bro, I just legit walked up to you. The name's Ron. Ron Weasley. I'm a wizard." Ron must have had some kind of speech impediment because his words were slurred. He also stopped every few words to sniff. Harry deduces that he probably has a cold. He settled down in the seat and started ripping the red seat cushion apart. "I am also a wizard. As well, too, also," Harry declared. "My name is Harry Potter, dear citizen." Ron stopped ripping the cushion upon hearing Harry's name. "Harry Potter? You know of my awesomeness, citizen? You're practically famous," Ron said as he took some of the stuffing out of the cushion. "I do my best," Harry said bashfully. "I mean, I knew this school was going to be great, but now I know a Potter." He waved the stuffing around as he talked, occasionally bringing it to his mouth to eat it. "A Potter? Is my dear Muggle family well known?" "Well, not you guys specifically, but your career choice," he said with a slight grin as he got more stuffing. "Career choice? Yeah, Potters. You sell stuff." "What kind of stuff, citizen?" "Illegal stuff," Ron answered as he ate more stuffing. "Are you referring to drugs, dear druggie?" "Hey, I'm not some drug addict, okay? I'm a druggist. You know, a drug enthusiast? Like a pharmacist, except I take the drugs instead of giving them. That doesn't make drugs any less illegal, youngster." It's Harry's job to use his wizard powers for good, but Ron wouldn't listen. Ron continued to eat the stuffing. "I heard there's a candy car, Broseph." Harry ignored him and tried to think of ways to convince his new friends that drugs are bad for you. "Hello? Let's go to the candy car." Ron stood up, revealing that the cushion was missing a lot of stuffing. "Okay, citizen." Harry will make sure Ron stays out of trouble. It's his duty. They arrived at the train's candy car and saw a lot of other people. The car had many bright colors. The counters and tabletops were magenta, along with the cushions of the chairs. The walls were yellow, with candy wrappers stapled on like polka dots. Brown tiles covered the floor, along with some fallen crushed wrappers here and there. The menu was listed in many different colors on a green chalkboard behind the counter. Many glass bowls filled with sugary candy were on display. The clerk wore a magenta apron over a yellow uniform. He also had a yellow and magenta hat. He seemed friendly enough, not happy or miserable with his job. The bright orange garbage cans were eyesores that overflowed with candy wrappers. Each time someone walked by, some of the wrappers would follow in the breeze and then land on the floor. Ron went to the counter to buy something, while Harry stood back, watching from afar. "Excuse me, would you fill out this 50-page survey about your knowledge of snakes?" A boy with gray eyes and blonde hair almost as white as snow held a stack of papers out to Harry. "I'm enrolled in the biology program, and we are going to study snakes. I thought it would be fun to see how much people already know. We'll be educating people about snakes." "Dear Muggle boy, I am Harry the Great, the best wizard this world has ever seen. My time cannot be wasted by filling out surveys." The boy gave a disappointed glare. "I understand. The survey is long, and I'm sure you value your time. Just know that people who know nothing of snakes are the ones who get bit. I'll be in the house of Slytherin." The boy walked away and found some other people to talk to. Harry jumped onto the table watching for trouble. The counter is doing fine. The tables are a little messy, but there's no trouble. Harry was broken out of his thoughts when someone came running in. They wore a mask and had a sense of urgency as they ran in. "Give me the candy." They held out a brown bag as they demanded the goods. "There's the trouble. Hogwarts will be a lot of work. The new class already has a drug issue and a robbery issue." "No, not the class, or the school. This is Harry's problem now. He needs to help solve this." The clerk anxiously filled the robber's bag as quickly as he could. "Halt!" Harry yelled. "There is no reason to steal this candy, thief!" "Stay out of this!" the robber commanded. "Have no fear, citizens, for I am Harry Potter, protector of Hogwarts. Scoundrel, just think about it. If you steal this candy, this clerk will lose a lot of money. He won't be able to support his muggle family, or even himself. All for what? So you can have some candy for free? Candy has no nutritional value, citizen. You'll just be consuming empty calories and excessive sugar. You'll become obese and have lots of cavities. Plus, stealing is wrong and it will make the clerk sad." The robber stopped and thought about what Harry had just said. After a moment, they dumped the contents of the bag on the counter and apologized. They dropped the bag on the floor and ran to the door of the car. They tore off their mask to reveal long, bushy, brown hair. She got to a vacant car and sat down at a table. "Great job, Hermione. Look what you did," she whispered to herself. One of the doors flew open and Harry came running in. "You're right," she started as Harry caught his breath. "Stealing is wrong. I forgot that somehow." Harry pointed at her. "You're going to jail, evildoer!" "What? But I gave the candy back." "Nope, I will not let this slide. It is my job to protect Hogwarts, even if we're just on the Polar Express now." "Oh, I guess I should have seen this coming." "Now the next problem. Where is jail?" "I shall use my magic to lock you in a magical cage for eternity." "For attempting to steal candy? Also, magic isn't real." Harry gasped so loudly it was practically a scream. "Oh, you poor muggle child. Maybe jail will teach you." He waved his wand around and chanted a spell. "Abracadabra, lock this person away. Yuh." Nothing happened. "That's odd. Maybe—" He pushed her under the table and chanted another spell. "Alakazam, turn this table into a cage." Bam. "There, citizen. You'll never get out of there." She immediately moved out from under the table and stood up. "See? Magic doesn't exist." "You're not a muggle at all. You must be a mudblood." "Mud what?" Harry backed away from her. "What spell did you use?" "I didn't use any spell. And you didn't either. You just waved around a twig you found in your backyard." "How dare you, mudblood!" "So, are you still on this jail thing, or can I go?" "Oh, you are so going to jail. Since my magic isn't that powerful yet, I'll have to give you probation." "Probation? Does that mean I have to hang out with you?" "Yes, for eternity." "Aw, you have no friends, do you?" "That's not the point. Also, I have a nickname for you. Would you like to hear it?" "Go for it." "Mud." "Mud? Why mud?" "Because you're a mudblood, Obvi." "Obvi? And what is a mudblood?" "We'd better get going, Mud." Harry grabbed her by the wrist and brought her back to his train car, where Ron was passed out on the floor. "Oh my gosh, is he dead?" Hermione shouted as she rushed over to Ron. "Maybe. Why don't you go check for me, Mud?" "Stop calling me that!" She knelt next to him and took his pulse. Ron sat up and rose his arms high above his head. "Yah!" Harry looked out the window. "Oh, hey, Ron." Hermione helped Ron sit up. "What happened?" "Well, the last thing I remember was sniffing this chocolate bar in the candy car. I don't know how I got here, though." He looked around as if this room was completely new to him. "You sniffed a chocolate bar?" Hermione asked, checking his head for bumps. "Oh yeah, you can get high off of anything if you try hard enough." Hermione helped him to his seat before Harry directed her to stay close by. She reluctantly took a seat next to him. "So, hypothetically, if I ran away from you, what would you do?" Hermione asked. "I would tell the leader of this fine establishment that you attempted to steal candy from the candy car. Then they would put it on your Hogwarts record. Then everyone who reads your file will know you're a thief and that you tried to steal on your first day of school. Wouldn't you rather just forget this happened?" Harry explained smugly. "Why do you have to be smart now?" she muttered. They all sat for a long time. Hermione was bored. She couldn't fall asleep with Ron's loud outbursts, and there was nothing else to do. Harry was having a conversation with Ron, but Hermione didn't want to be involved. Ron's probably on probation too, for good reason by the looks of it. They continued to sit. Hermione looked around the train. I'm so bored. Harry, give me your glasses. Why, Mud? Whenever my family members were out on at work, I would be super bored. I would read this eyeglass repair book over and over until they came back. Now I'm really good at fixing glasses. Anyway, I noticed yours are broken. Oh, thank you, he said, giving his glasses to Hermione. She worked slowly, appreciative of having something to do. The glasses were black and had circular lenses. The frame was held together by tape and had lots of scratches. Even once she made an acceptable repair, she didn't return them. They were good as new when Harry got them back. How did they break? Hermione asked. I took the wizard test, dear citizen. What wizard test? Ron asked. The one where you run through a brick wall. You mean you didn't pass? Hermione asked. I did pass. I just broke my glasses and got some bruises. It's all part of the test. I need to take that test, Ron yelled, standing up but falling to the floor. Chapter 2. The Sorting Hat Kinda Gets Borked. The staff handed out bowls of lettuce, and the three of them ate a light lunch that was very bland. Later on, there was a message over the speaker system. We'll be arriving in Hogsmeade Station shortly. Great, Hermione exclaimed. Harry started to frown. The train ride is almost over? I thought there'd be hot chocolate. He looked out the window and saw the thick forest start thinning. Ahead there was a tall building made of stone. It must be a castle, since it had many tall towers and a moat. When they got closer and the forest finally stopped, the speaker said, Welcome to Hogsmeade Station. The train stopped and the doors opened. After traveling down a long road, they all got on boats and crossed the large moat. Harry and Ron wanted to see if there were alligators, but Hermione reminded them that dangerous reptiles that live in moats would probably break some kind of school safety policy. They got off the boats and a mass of people formed and moved into the building. Harry, Hermione, and Ron were mixed into the large group. They didn't know where they were going, but they hoped the people in the front did. The group was most condensed around the doors as everyone tried to get into the building. The group of people kept moving until they approached a staircase and witnessed an old man with a long, silvery beard tumbling down the stairs. They were worried about the man, but he seemed to be fine. He stood up again and climbed the stairs. They passed by him, and moments later they heard him fall down the stairs again. That poor person, Hermione said. The large group of people were led into a cafeteria. What a great hall! Someone in the crowd exclaimed as everyone looked around the large room in awe. Many older students were already sitting at the 4 long tables. When everyone was in the room, a tall, thin man called for their attention. Hello! Welcome, everyone! My name is Hat, but everyone calls me the Sorting Hat. I will be telling you what house you'll be in. Everyone studying biology knew they would go to Slytherin, but there are 3 other houses, Hufflepuff, Gryffindor, and Ravenclaw. The Sorting Hat continued to talk about the different houses. What house do you guys want to go to? Ron asked quietly. The one with the most trouble and crime for me to solve, citizen. Trouble and crime? Sounds like a great place to spread my drug usage message. What about you, Mud? Harry asked. Okay, for the last time, stop calling me Mud. Would you rather have me call you Klepto? How about you call me by my name? I can't. I don't know your name. You don't know my name? You never introduced yourself. You have got to be kidding me. The Sorting Hat started talking again. I will begin the sorting! His loud voice boomed. One by one, the new students were sorted throughout the 4 houses. The Sorting Hat then called Ron. Sup, Ron said as he sat down on the stool. Yes, I know that you have siblings at Hogwarts, the Sorting Hat said. Ron's eyes widened. Wow, you must have magic that makes you know everything. Or he just read your file, Hermione said under her breath. You will be placed in Gryffindor. Ron went to sit at the Gryffindor table. Once Hermione was called, she went to sit on the stool. She quietly waited as the Sorting Hat waved his hands around. Harry watched as Hermione gave a small note to the Sorting Hat. He stopped waving his hands so that he could read the small scrap of paper. I see. You will live in Gryffindor as well. Hermione smiled and stood up. She sat down with the other Gryffindors at the table. Harry was wondering what the note said as the Sorting Hat called him to the stool. And you will go too. Now thinking of his own placement, Harry interrupted Hat. Citizen, I'd like to remind you that I do not like biology, so I would not be a good fit in Slytherin, Harry informed. Okay, you'll be going to— Just to clarify, I know that I shouldn't go to Slytherin. Well, I am the Sorting Hat, so I know where you should go. Yes, and so do I. I shouldn't go to Slytherin. I don't know, I think you'd be right at home there. That's ridiculous. I am Harry Potter, the protector of Hogwarts. I will not go to Slytherin. Can you just let me tell you what house you're going to? As long as it's not Slytherin. Gryffindor, the Sorting Hat huffed. Harry was happy with his placement. He'll be with his two new friends, Ron and Mud. The Sorting Hat looked around the room at all the remaining students. "There are way too many of you," he muttered. He then started walking around the room, tapping people on the head and telling them what house they'd be in. It made the process go a lot faster. When everyone knew what house they would be going to, the Sorting Hat walked out of the room. They started thinking he was supposed to continue since no one else started talking. They were given no directions and sat with their houses. Soon, someone else came into the room. He was the one who kept falling down the stairs. "Hello, students. My name is Albus Dumbledore. I am the headmaster of this school. This year is the 20th anniversary of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry having been established. Throughout the years, we have strived to improve in every way. We have achieved an incredible staff and education system. You will all be well taken care of here." He continued to talk about Hogwarts for a long time. When he finished, he told everyone to go to their houses. Harry, Ron, and Hermione went to Gryffindor Tower. Harry and Ron stopped at a painting just before the common room. Hermione noticed that they stopped and turned back to see what they were doing. "It's asking for a password," Harry said. "What is?" Hermione asked. "The painting. The painting of this lady," Ron answered. They stared at the painting as Hermione walked towards it. "What could the password be?" Harry asked. "What if the password changes?" Ron asked. "Why don't you ask the nice painting lady?" Hermione suggested sarcastically. "Of course! Dear wise painting citizen, what is your password?" Harry asked as Hermione muffled a laugh. "The password is abracadabra," Hermione answered, disguising her voice. "Abracadabra! Come on, let's go," Hermione nudged. As they walked into the common room, they noticed a group of students having a heated discussion. They looked like they had just sat down. A few of them had pet cages and they all had trunks. They must have stopped to continue a conversation they had been having on the way to Gryffindor Tower. The three couldn't help but be curious, so they stood out of sight and listened. "I'm just saying, cars are death traps. I'd rather take a train," someone said. "Accidents are really rare. Besides, how did you get to King's Cross Station? There aren't train stations on every corner." Someone else fumbled with a newspaper. "Here's why the accident was so bad. They hit a whopping willow. Nasty trees. One tap and they'll attack." "Their poor family," a quiet girl said. "I don't know," Harry whispered to Ron and Hermione. "Sometimes people lie and say someone died in a car crash when really they died by a magic death ray." After giving Harry confused looks, they went to their dormitories. Harry and Ron went to their room and discovered their bags had magically been delivered. Ron went to see if the painting's password changed since they were last there, while Harry started unpacking by putting Rock on his bedside table. "This will be your spot, Rock. Do you like it?" The Rock said nothing, and Harry continued to unpack his new Hogwarts clothes. As he filled the drawers, he spoke to his pet. "It's a lot different from home, but that's okay. As long as you're here, I'll be fine." Soon Ron returned. He started putting his drugs in his dresser. It seemed he brought little else. 3 other people lived in the dormitory. They walked in, but Harry thought they were uninteresting, so he ignored them. After they finished settling into their new rooms, they met up in the common room. This time they got a chance to view the area. It may as well have been a library. There were bookshelves everywhere. There were even sections for different types of books. Around the room, there were many tables for people to work at. There were also comfortable chairs and couches for people to sit in. In the middle of the room sat a small fireplace. The fire gave the room an orange tint and a cozy atmosphere. The walls were a golden brown color, and the windows were very tall. They decided to call the area in front of the fireplace their spot. Ron sat in a chair inhaling something while Hermione read some books about Hogwarts, and while Harry practiced spells, insisting he was doing well. Harry waved a twig at a pencil sitting on a wooden table. "Aha! That pencil levitated for a moment." "No, it didn't," Hermione said, not even looking up from her book. Ron put his drugs down and excitedly moved his arms around. "I saw it, Broseph." "You're not the best source," Hermione said. "Oh, and you are, Mud?" Harry asked. "Yes, I am. I'm the only one not running around saying that I'm a wizard." Harry looked puzzled. "But you are a wizard. How else did you get out of that magical cage I made?" "Because magic doesn't exist. I'm only here because everyone in my family once believed that they were wizards. They all went to Hogwarts, and they just sent me because they're so sure that I'll start thinking I'm a wizard." "Ah, Mud, that must be tough," Harry consoled. "What was that note you gave to the Sorting Hat?" "Oh, that? It was just a friendly warning informing him that bad things would happen if I ended up in Ravenclaw," Hermione answered kindly. "I understand why you wouldn't want to go to Slytherin, but why not Ravenclaw?" Hermione didn't answer, leaving an empty silence. After a few moments, Harry gave up on his question and filled the dead air with a question to Ron. "Don't you remember Dare?" "Dare? Lol, I dare you to sniff some drugs," Ron laughed. Harry was getting nowhere. Was Ron just unfixable? No, of course not. No one is unfixable. Everyone has potential. Harry wished he could believe the same for Ron. Drugs are bad, citizen! You can keep saying that, but it doesn't mean I'll believe it. Besides, why do you care? He turned towards Hermione. Do you care if I do drugs? Well, I think it's a stupid thing to do, but I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. Just don't die or anything. Geez, who are you, my mum? Fine, I'll try not to die. After a while, they went back to the cafeteria to eat dinner. They discovered a lot of food had been brought in. Many students were already eating, but the empty plates each had a white note. Whoops, forgot about the feast. Enjoy. Albus Dumbledore. They sat down at the edge of the Gryffindor table and moved their notes. Then they started putting food on their plates. As they were eating, two identical red-haired boys walked over to their table. Hey, Ron, one of them said. Ah! Harry screamed as he fell out of his chair and onto the floor. Invasion of the Gingers! I knew this would happen! One of them reached for Harry's hand. Harry backed away. No! I don't want your ginger plague! Red hair isn't... Hermione's voice trailed off as she looked at Harry, who was cowering against the wall. The Gingers looked too amused by this. Contagious? I don't know, have you looked at our family? The other one asked. Harry, relax. These are my brothers, Fred and George, Ron said, pointing to each as he said their name. Oh, sorry, citizens. I'm Harry Potter and this is Mud. Hermione tried to protest. My name's not Mud, I'm trying to apologize. A third Ginger approached the table. Harry fell back to the floor. We're not contagious, we're just Weasleys, the third redhead said. He looked at Ron. Still living a life of drugs? Still trying to get people to avoid them, Percy? Ron asked. As always, Percy answered. We'll see whose message gets across, Ron jabbed. Well, Fred and George are helping me, he said. Ron looked betrayed. Why are you helping him? Fred and George both seemed uncomfortable. It's just, you started doing drugs right after we left for Hogwarts, Fred said earnestly, a manner of speaking that Harry could tell was not normal for them. Fine, be that way. I've got the drugs that make people happy, Ron reminded. And we've got a name for our movement, Percy bragged. Ron lost his confidence. He had nothing to shoot back with. A name? Weasley's No Wheezes, he informed. Since Ron is Harry's friend, he's loyal to Ron. He tried to think of a way to help his friend. There was a short silence before Harry leaned in to whisper something in Ron's ear. The only thing he could think to say was the truth. That's a good name. Harry's words were just loud enough for Hermione to hear. As Harry drifted back to his normal sitting posture, Hermione leaned towards Ron's other ear to whisper something to him. No, it's not. We know the drugs mess with you, George said. Percy's snobby expression changed. That's why I started this whole thing. I thought if we could get other people to stop doing drugs, we could get you to stop. Yeah, well, I don't want to stop. In fact, I want you guys to join me in my drug revolution. That'll be my name, Drug Revolution, Ron declared. The three redheads walked away with frowns across their faces and their heads hung low. Harry looked confused. Wait a minute. Whose side should I be on? The Gingers want Ron to stop doing drugs, and so do I. But I am loyal to my friends. These are the questions, Hermione answered, amused by Harry's confusion. Ron remained quiet. Ron, are you okay? Hermione asked, noticing his unusual silence. Huh? Yeah, I'm fine, he replied. I need some more drugs, he muttered. They finished with dinner and went back to the common room. Hermione continued to read, and Harry kept practicing spells. Ron ran around carrying books and pretending to fly. Hey, kids, you want to smoke some ice cream? He annoyed several people and then passed out for a while. When he woke up, he started laughing hysterically while trying to say the alphabet. Then he tried climbing a staircase, but kept falling down. Hey, look at me, I'm Dumbledore! Ron laughed. Coincidentally, he was trying to climb the staircase that led to the girls' dormitories. Why can't I climb the stairs? Ron asked, laughing slightly less. Hermione lifted her head from her book and thought for a moment with the top of her pen on her chin. That's because the founders of Hogwarts put a magical spell on the staircase, making it impossible for boys to climb the stairs to the girls' dormitories. Really? Harry asked, intrigued by the spell on the staircase. Oh, definitely, Hermione assured, trying not to laugh. They spent the rest of the day in the common room. Then they went to their dormitories to go to sleep. Harry led the way for Ron, since he was still laughing hysterically. Ron hopped over to his bed and immediately fell asleep. Harry said hi to Rock and then looked at the calendar. Today is Saturday. Classes start on Monday, he thought. He said goodnight to Rock and went to bed. The next morning, Harry woke up and looked at his desk to say good morning to Rock. Where are you, Rock? He jumped out of bed and looked all around the bedside table. Rock wasn't on the table, nor the floor, and he wasn't flying in the air. He looked all around the room for the gray rock. "Ron, please tell me you know where Rock is," Harry said, shaking Ron awake. "Too high to talk," Ron mumbled. "Haven't you slept it off yet?" Harry hissed. "Not completely," he continued to mumble. Harry grumbled as he thought of what to do. Wait, the staircase! I can't climb it!" They were set to meet up in the common room to go to breakfast, but there was still a bit of time before then. Harry tried to calm down and get dressed. He then shifted his attention to Ron. "We've got to go to breakfast, Ron." Ron made some unintelligible noises, and the other three people started waking up. Harry went to the closet and started throwing some clothes at Ron. As he was leaving, he heard a squeak. Harry turned back and looked inside. He moved some things and discovered a rat in a box. "Ah! There's a rat in the closet!" Ron sat up. "Yeah, I know." "Why is there a rat in the closet?" Ron stood up and walked to the small room. He pulled the chain on the light, and the closet became dark. He closed the door and looked at Harry. "Don't worry about it. It's fine." Ron got ready and they walked to the common room. Hermione was already there, reading another book. "I thought we were going to be early, Mud," Harry said as Ron dropped onto a couch and tried to sleep. "I've been here for an hour. I was really early," Hermione said. Seriously? He could have immediately gone to the common room to talk to Hermione. "I have really bad news." Hermione flipped the page of her book and curiously glanced at Harry. "My pet Rock, has gone missing," he lamented. "Its name is Rock?" Hermione asked. Ron stopped trying to sleep. "It should be called the Philosopher's Stone." "No, it should be called the Sorcerer's Stone," Hermione suggested. "What are you talking about?" Harry asked, preoccupied with his missing pet. "I need to find him." After hearing Harry continue to talk about the rock, Hermione lifted her head and kept her gaze on Harry. "You're really worried about a lost rock?" "Of course I am! I keep him on my desk and now he's just gone!" "I have heard about some recent thefts in the castle." "It's possible someone stole it," Ron suggested. Hermione moved the book's ribbon marker to the page she was on and closed the book. She put it on the table beside her and stood up. "I can't imagine why, but maybe someone will come forward if we put up some lost pet posters?" They made many flyers using paper and ink. On each paper they wrote in big letters, "Missing Rock." They also wrote Harry's contact information. None of them could afford to offer a reward, so the bottom of each flyer was blank. They couldn't put a lot of information on the papers anyway, since they were making them by hand and they needed a lot of posters. When they were satisfied with the amount of flyers, they started distributing them. They handed flyers to students and teachers. They hung the posters in hallways and rooms. As Harry was pinning a flyer to the bulletin board, he noticed another paper that had been previously pinned. "What's Squidditch?" Hermione gave a confused look before walking to the bulletin board to see what he was talking about. Harry pointed to the paper, and Hermione promptly read it. She began to laugh. "That says Quidditch, not Squidditch." Harry continued to read the flyer. "Oh, it's a sport! My dad used to be the best player on the lacrosse team." Hermione continued to laugh. "Your dad was a jock? That makes a lot of sense." "I want to be on the Gryffindor Quidditch team." Hermione laughed harder. "You're going to be a jock? I'm going to sign up right now." "I hope you do well at Squidditch tryouts." Hermione laughed as she leaned against the wall for support. "It's not that funny, Mud." "But it is! I'm just picturing a wizard-themed sport where people ride around on broomsticks throwing balls through tall rings." Harry finished reading the flyer and seemed to be an expert on the basics. "You're forgetting about the most important part. Catching the golden snitch is worth 150 points. "I was guessing correctly?" "Except for leaving out the snitch, yes." Hermione started laughing again. She continued to chuckle as they put up the next several flyers. Soon the flyers were all gone and they were done. Hermione looked at the last paper they had hung up. She stepped away from the wall and looked around. "Where's Ron?" Harry looked around, noticing he was nowhere to be seen. "I have no idea." They walked through the halls looking for their friend. Eventually, they found him passed out on the floor of one of the hallways. "We were getting worried, citizen," Harry said to Ron. "They're not mine, I'm just holding them for a friend." Ron opened his eyes and saw Harry and Hermione. "Oh, it's you. Yeah, these are totally mine." Hermione sighed and shook her head. They helped Ron up and walked back to the common room. Hermione went back to her book, and Harry practiced his superhero poses. Ron inhaled more drugs and annoyed people. Chapter 3. The Creepy Bathroom Girl. The next day, classes began. The day went on slowly. Each teacher announced what the class was going to be about, and then played some kind of name memorization game. Some even had an activity so the students could get to know each other better. It was very boring. Fortunately, Harry, Hermione, and Ron had lots of classes together. Towards the end of the day, they sat in a class for what seemed like hours. Professor Squirrel droned on and on. The class was called Wand Safety. The wand part sounded kind of interesting, but as he read the syllabus, they learned the entire class would be about trying not to poke people in the eye with their wands. Ron and Hermione fell asleep, while Harry tried but failed to pay attention and stay awake. Everyone was awakened by the professor slamming a textbook down on someone's desk. "Wake up! This is important!" He put the textbook down and continued talking. Ron sat up and raised his hand. "Yes?" Mr. Squirrel replied. Ron held something in his hand up to the professor. "Does this smell funny?" The teacher reluctantly leaned in to smell whatever he was holding. "You might have to get a few big whiffs." The professor did as he was instructed and then collapsed on the ground. Everyone gasped as they silently stared at their unconscious wand safety professor, panic written all over their faces. Hermione looked at Ron in disbelief. "You just drugged our teacher." "Yep, you're welcome." She said nothing for a moment. "Okay. Should we seek medical care?" Harry asked. Ron stood up and stretched his arms above his head. "Nah, he'll be fine. As soon as he regains consciousness, he'll be high as a kite." The room calmed down a bit, despite the teacher being unresponsive. A few people stood up and walked around the room. Hermione rose from her seat as well. "I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back." She walked out of the room. A student turned around and looked at Ron and Harry. "Hope she avoids the closest one." "Why is that, citizen?" "Moaning Joanne lives in the girls' bathroom just down the hall," the student answered. "Who's that?" Ron asked. "Rumor has it she walked in and never came out. She's been crying there ever since, so no one uses that bathroom." "That sounds awesome!" Harry exclaimed. "Let's go check it out," Ron said as he and Harry started walking to the door. "But I heard she has deadly wizard lasers!" the student shouted. Ron stopped in the doorway and turned towards the student. If she walked into a bathroom one day and never came out, why would she have lasers? He turned back around and walked out the door. Harry and Ron wandered around looking for the bathroom. It took longer than expected and they almost got lost. Luckily, Hermione was walking back to class. "Was there a girl crying in the bathroom?" Ron asked. Yes, actually. How did you know?" "Did she have lasers?" Harry asked. "No, of course not. Why would she have lasers?" "Will you take us to her?" Ron asked. "No, it's a girls' bathroom. You are guys. And I don't know if I trust you two around sad people." "What?" Harry asked, slightly insulted. She pointed to Harry. "You'll probably say something insensitive." She then pointed to Ron. "And you'll probably offer her drugs." "Hey, I already used all my drugs on the teacher. But yes, I would suggest drugs." "We know where she is already. It's not like we almost got lost. We're going to go see her whether you come with us or not, Mud." Harry stormed off in the wrong direction. "Harry, it's over here somewhere," Ron called. "Why do you want to see her so badly?" "Someone in class told us about her. We wanted to see if the rumors about her are true," Harry answered as he walked back to the group. "Oh, really?" "The answer is still no," Hermione decided. Ron and Harry started sprinting in the direction of the bathroom. Hermione took off after them. The three of them arrived at the bathroom. Hermione tried to drag them away, but Ron grabbed both of her arms. She pouted and watched Harry walk up to Moaning Joanne. "Hello, Moaning Citizen. We come in peace. Lasers are not necessary." Hermione rolled her eyes. "Hello, Harry." "Ron," Moaning Joanne greeted. "How did you know I'm the great Harry Potter and that these are my two wizarding companions, Ron and Mud?" Hermione's pouty face turned into an angry glare that could turn anyone to stone. "I created all of you." Harry looked sideways. "You've got a few screws loose, don't you? What makes you so sad?" Moaning Joanne's lip began to tremble. "This world, everything I wanted it to be has been ruined. There was supposed to be magic and heroic characters and mystical creatures." She paused for a moment to let some tears fall. "That's why I stay here. I don't want to see anything else that has been ruined." Everyone tried to figure out what she was saying. "Huh?" Ron commented. "For example, my name was supposed to be Myrtle. There was supposed to be alliteration," she sobbed. "At least, I have the number 7. I love the number 7. It's always right there, right between 5 and 8. The magical number 7. Did you know that's why you have 6 siblings, Ron? Your brother Charlie is just filler. That's why there's no official picture of him. He didn't get into the movies." Harry walked back to the doorway. "Definitely a nutter," he whispered. "And she's terrible at maths." As Moaning Joanne sobbed, Ron let go of Hermione and they all went back to class. Hermione was still mad about a lot of things. They found their classroom and looked inside. The teacher had woken up and he was throwing textbooks. The group didn't go in the room. They instead kept walking and skipped the rest of class. The end of the day came and it was time for Harry to try out for the Gryffindor Quidditch team. "Do you want to watch?" Harry asked his friends. "Sure," Ron answered. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Hermione replied, starting to laugh a little. They traveled to the field and sat on the bleachers. Soon, an older lady stood up and began to speak. "My name is Minerva McGonagall. I love monocles. Oh, and I heard I'm the head of the House of Gryffindor." A few people cheered upon hearing the name Gryffindor. "We need some skilled blokes for our Quidditch team." Love that word. My favorite word. Use it all the time. As much as I can. Just rolls right off the tongue. Bloke, bloke, bloke. As she repeated that word, the students that were trying out invited themselves onto the field. Realizing she was still supposed to be giving directions, she made 2 teams and announced the rules. She directed people to their positions and started the game. They stood on broomsticks and pretended to fly. They ran around the field trying to score points. They all watched out for the snitch. Someone somewhere was the snitch. They could be in the bleachers, or the field, or even in the building. The snitch holds a golden sphere with bat wings called the Golden Snitch. Their job is to protect it. The game ends when either team finds the Golden Snitch. "You can do it, Harry!" Ron cheered. "You're the best Quidditch player there is!" Hermione cheered while holding back another laugh. A massive man with long black hair and a bushy black beard sat down behind them. "Go, Harry!" he yelled. "Which one's Harry?" Hermione turned to look at the man. "He's the teeny tiny one playing as a seeker." He looked around the field and saw Harry. "Look at that! It's Brick Wall Kid!" "You know him?" Hermione asked. "I know all the wizards. Sometimes I don't know their names at first." He stared at Hermione. "I don't know you at all, though." Ron stopped sniffing something and turned to look at him. "Hagrid? Broseph, what are you doing here?" "I work here as the gamekeeper." "But how do you know Harry and Ron?" Hermione asked. "I was the one who told them they're wizards. That's part of me job. I tell kids that they're wizards." "You're the reason why so many people believe they're wizards?" Hermione realized. "Yeah, I am. Anyway, I've got to go, but I'll be around." Hermione watched as he walked away. "How could he just lie to dumb kids like Ron and Harry?" she muttered to herself. "Eight!" someone called. Too soon they were standing right in front of Hermione. A Ravenclaw with long brown hair achieved a disgusted look from Hermione. "Friend of yours?" Ron asked. "No," Hermione said bluntly. "We've been looking all over for you. Welcome to Hogwarts, Granger 8. "Who are you?" Ron asked. "Are you friend or foe?" "Foe," Hermione said as she tried to nudge her away. "Friend," Ron answered. "So good to hear that you have a friend, 8. She looked at Ron and held out her hand. "I'm Granger 6. Hermione stopped shooing the girl away and stared at her with a furious expression. "I told you, my name is Hermione." She gave a nervous look and slowly gave a weak nod as she withdrew her hand. "Yeah, we wanted to have a sort of meetup. We've been looking forward to your arrival for ages. Finally, everyone in our gen is here at Hogwarts. Weird that you're in Gryffindor, though. We thought for sure you'd be in Ravenclaw with all of us." "I'm not in your creepy generation cult. My name is Hermione, and for now I unfortunately happen to be a Granger. If you bother me again, I'll put a curse on all of you. So stay away. No exceptions. Tell the others." 6 looked like she had been punched in the stomach. Her eyes filled with tears and she ran off. Ron, who had somehow been able to pay attention to the conversation while inhaling drugs, looked horrified. "That was my cousin." "And you hate her because?" "I don't hate her. I just don't like her. You wouldn't understand." They continued watching the tryouts. McGonagall watched everyone very closely. She sat in a chair next to the field writing notes on a clipboard. Harry stood in the field trying to figure out who the snitch was. Soon someone walked in front of the bleachers wearing a cloak, catching Harry's attention. He walked towards the person and noticed they were holding something. Harry knew this had to be the snitch. He ran towards him and yelled, "Snitch!" McGonagall dropped her clipboard on the ground as she heard Harry. She jumped onto the table in front of her, scaring the black and white cat who had been sleeping on it. "Tackle!" she screamed. "Tackle!" Everyone in the bleachers stood up and cheered. Harry and the other team's obese seeker chased after the snitch, but Harry got there first. Obviously. He pushed the snitch to the ground and everyone cheered. "Burn the snitch!" McGonagall screamed, jumping up and down on the table as the cat hissed at her from the ground. "Where's the golden snitch, snitchy citizen?" Harry demanded. "I'm not a snitch. I'm just here to make a delivery." The person showed that his coat was concealing drugs. "Where's Ron Weasley?" Ron hopped down from the bleachers and walked towards the dealer. "Oh, thanks." Ron gave him a roll of cash and took a bunch of drugs. He returned to his seat on the bleachers, and the dealer got to his feet and limped away. The crowd booed, and the game continued. McGonagall got off the table and picked up her clipboard. She sat back down and continued to scribble notes. The cat stayed on the ground and fell back to sleep. Harry returned to his position at the center of the field. He continued looking for the snitch while the other team's seeker glared at Harry. It made him very uncomfortable. He tried to avoid eye contact and hoped the game would be over soon. The rest of the players kept scoring points. It didn't matter, though. It's obvious that McGonagall wants to see the snitch be tackled, so for this tryout match, the snitch will have to be found. Harry looked around, but he didn't see anyone suspicious. He noticed the crowd had lost their energy, and a few had even fallen asleep. The players had also gotten more tired and bored. Harry, too, was bored. There wasn't much for him to do but look around. In the corner of his eye, he could see the other Seeker doing something odd. He drew his finger across his throat and used the same finger to point at Harry. His blue eyes were full of malice, and his eyebrows pointed down, making a crease in his forehead just above his nose. His blonde hair was neatly combed and parted. His face was round since he was extremely fat. Harry was about to run away out of fear, but then he realized that superheroes must be brave. He started walking forward down the field. He walked straight towards the other Seeker, who crossed his arms and started laughing. Harry stopped in front of the other Seeker and stood in his best superhero pose. "I will send you to prison, evildoer!" The other Seeker's amused expression turned into a more serious one. "I'd like to see you try." He got off his broomstick and held it as a sword. Harry knew what he had to do. He too got off his broomstick and held it high. He's ready. The Seeker took one swing and hit Harry, knocking him off his feet. Harry got angry. He jumped to his feet and tried to hit the Seeker. They battled for a while in the middle of the Quidditch field while the tryout match continued on. McGonagall was first to move her attention from the tryouts and to the Seeker battle. Her cheers woke most of the people in the bleachers, and they began to watch the heated battle too. Some of the players even stopped to watch. Soon only a couple of people were still playing Quidditch. A person wearing a cloak sat on the bleachers and wasn't amused by the battling Seekers. "Is anyone going to look for the snitch?" McGonagall didn't care about the game anymore. "Shh! No one cares about the safe Quidditch match! We could see some real violence and death here!" She didn't take her eyes off the fight even when she got popcorn from her bag. She shoved popcorn into her mouth as she excitedly watched. The fight went on for a while and they both were tired. Harry knew how important this fight was. He needed to show he's the right person to be the protector of Hogwarts. He needed to show he's a good superhero and that he'll use his wizardry for good. He also needed to arrest this supervillain. "Surrender, scoundrel, for I am Harry Potter, protector of Hogwarts." "Wait a minute, I know that name," the Seeker exclaimed as he fought. "You're my lame cousin." The same person wearing the cloak walked towards the fight. "Hey, I'm the snitch. You gonna do anything?" Everyone ignored his comment. Harry continued his conversation with the other Seeker. "You're mistaken, rapscallion. I don't have a cousin." The person wearing the cloak threw the golden snitch at the ground and stomped away. "Yes, you do. I'm Dudley Dursley, your mum's sister's son. We're the best wizards of all. Your family was kicked out because you're muggles, which means you're just a mudblood." "What did you just say? I am not a mudblood." "Well, you're certainly not a pureblood." Dudley fought with a smug grin. "The only mudblood around here is Mud. Right, Mud?" He looked to the bleachers and found out she was one of the people who were still sleeping. Ron was next to her, inhaling his new drugs. "See, look how different we are. She's a mudblood and I am certainly not." "Your parents are muggles. That makes you a mudblood." "I am not a mudblood." Harry got a second wind and started fighting harder. In the bleachers, Hermione woke up from Harry's screaming. She looked at the field and saw the madness that Quidditch tryouts had turned into. "What on earth has happened here?" Ron looked at the field. "Oh yeah, everyone got bored of Quidditch, so they all decided to watch Harry beat up his cousin with a broomstick." "What?" Hermione looked at the person fighting Harry. "Hey, I remember him from when he was being sorted. He made a big speech about being the greatest wizard ever, and then he was sorted into Ravenclaw. What's he doing at Gryffindor Quidditch tryouts?" Hermione's confusion was interrupted by McGonagall. "Beat him to the ground! End his miserable life!" She was back on the table and she kept screaming. Hermione watched as Harry knocked Dudley down and continued to hit him. "Yeah, and I'm the one on probation." She climbed down off the bleachers and ran towards Harry as Dudley was held at broom point. "Harry, stop! Whatever this person has done, you shouldn't murder them!" Harry whined in protest. "Aw, why not?" "Because murder is bad." "Boo!" McGonagall yelled from the top of her table. "What about just a little?" "What would be a little murder?" Hermione asked the professor. "There will be no murder today." The crowd booed. "You are all horrible people. Professor McGonagall, come down from there and decide who's getting on the team. Harry, put the broomstick away and help your cousin up." The crowd scattered and Harry told Hermione what had happened. Dudley turned to Hermione. "He called you a mudblood." Harry got mad again and looked at Dudley. "Because you called me a mudblood." Dudley looked at Harry. "Because you are a mudblood." "And so is Mud," Harry said. Hermione interrupted them. What's a mudblood? Ron stumbled towards them. It's the name of a drug. No, it's not. I lied. Dudley started cackling. Harry, you just said, and so is mud. End quote. You just agreed that you were also a mudblood. That's not what I meant. You can't get yourself out of this one. Dudley started dancing around. My family is the best wizarding family, and I'm the best wizard. Harry glared at Dudley. You're just a supervillain. A supervillain? Ha! Dudley scoffed. You're the supervillain. I am not a supervillain! Harry picked up his broomstick and was prepared to start hitting Dudley again. Hermione grabbed the broomstick from Harry and threw it across the field. And you? She looked at Dudley. Stop being annoying. Haha, she's on my side, Dudley, Harry said smugly. Yeah, 'cause she's your girlfriend, Dudley teased. Hey! Ron shouted from across the field. Harry was very offended. You know that we're 11, right? Besides, I would never date someone who's on probation. Hermione threw her hands up in the air. Nope, that's it. I'm done. She began moving towards the castle. Don't kill each other, she commanded as she walked. Harry did as he was told and did not kill his cousin. Eventually, Harry and Ron went to the cafeteria to eat dinner. Towards the middle of their meal, Harry noticed Hermione approaching their table. I knew you'd return, Mud. She sat down with her food. Well, I am on probation. But you still left in the first place? Harry smirked. Hermione didn't say anything. She ate her food and didn't regard her departure for another second. After dinner, they went back to the common room as they usually did. Harry looked at the flyer for his missing pet. I'm never going to find Rock. Hermione looked up at him. Yes, you will. He has to be here somewhere. Someone has to know something. Rocks can't walk off on their own. Chapter 4. It's Christmas now. Months passed, but no one came forward about the rock. Harry could put his missing rock out of his mind, but he became very sad once he remembered it was lost. The Christmas season had started, and Hogwarts decorated with lots of Christmas trees. Students were wrapped up and getting gifts before they went home for Christmas. Some of them would stay at Hogwarts, while others could choose to go home. Hermione went to the forest to get Harry's gift. She trudged through the deep snow and arrived in a white-glazed forest. Some of the trees were evergreen, and others had lost their leaves and let the sun shine through their branches. She walked around looking for a branch. As she ventured deeper into the forest, she began to hear a man singing an axe-themed Christmas carol. She followed the noise and saw Hagrid cutting down a large evergreen tree with an axe. Hagrid noticed Hermione and waved. Hello. Hermione looked through a tree's branches. Hagrid. Hagrid continued to hit the tree with his axe. Why so cold? Because you've been telling people they're wizards. Yeah, and then they come here. I just talk cause and effect. I should be a teacher. He swung the axe again. But if you know the truth most believe, why are you here? Hermione started to look at another tree's branches. Because a half-giant has told everyone in my family that they're a wizard. You missed me, though. Now I'm stuck at Hogwarts with two annoying people who think they're magical wizards. Some would say to make the best of the situation. Or you could find some other friends. Students in the biology program don't think they're wizards. Yeah, but they're all in Slytherin. So? I need some friends in Gryffindor. Have you talked to every person in Gryffindor? You might find someone in the exact same boat as you. It would take forever to find someone like that. You like to complain a lot, don't you? If your friends are so annoying, then stop hanging around them. I can't do that. Sure you can. Unless you do want to be their friend. I don't. She found a branch and broke it off the tree. She showed it to him. This is the gift I'm getting for Harry. A tree branch. I'm going to tell him it's magic. And he'll believe you. We both know he'll love that gift. You're getting a great gift for your friend. What are you getting for Ron? Sugar pills. Ah, that's a great idea. Something I'll also love, though it's healthier than real drugs. You're a very good gift giver and you love your friends. They're not my friends. Fine, you can say that, but it all comes down to that day in the candy car. How did you know about that? Hermione asked. Hagrid said nothing and continued to hit the tree. Why did you plan to steal that candy? I wanted candy, Hermione answered emptily. That's not the reason, Hermione. I thought you didn't know my name. Hagrid let out a hearty laugh. He gave the tree one more strong hit and it fell down. He dragged the tree away as a strong gust of wind filled the air with snow, making him impossible to see. The wind quickly calmed down and the snow disappeared, revealing that Hagrid had also vanished. Hermione stayed in the forest. She found another branch and started sanding Harry's gift. She sat on the new tree stump as she worked. She was making a nice design for the wand. She put a lot of work into her project. I don't like Harry. Or Ron. They are not my friends. Her voice echoed through the cold winter air. When she finished the wand, she brought it back to the building and wrapped it. She kept reminding herself that she was just being a nice person, but Hagrid's words haunted her thoughts. Harry, Ron, and Hermione ate dinner and began a conversation about who would be leaving Hogwarts for Christmas. Harry put his fork down to make his announcement. I plan to return to my dear Muggle family this Christmas. Hermione cut her roast beef with a knife. I'm not. My family keeps telling me to They talk to me like I'm a toddler. After every sentence, they tell me I'm not a wizard. For example, if they ask me what I wanted to eat, they'd say, What do you want to eat? You're not a wizard. Ron spoke with his mouth full of mashed potatoes. My family is way worse. They're always telling me to stop doing drugs. It's so annoying. He swallowed his food and looked at Hermione. Hey, I've got an idea. Will you go as my proxy? Sure, I'd love to have some sanity in my life. The train would be leaving tomorrow. A lot of gift exchanges were happening in the cafeteria. The three decided to go with the crowd. Harry put 2 gifts on the table. One was for Ron and the other was for Hermione. They each picked up their gift and unwrapped them. They both got a signed picture of Harry drawn in crayon. Hermione and Ron said nothing. You're welcome! Lots of students would kill for these. Harry reached under the table again. I also got you each one more thing, but I sincerely doubt you'll like them better. Ron picked up his second gift and unwrapped it. Inside was a box of black hair dye. Harry smiled from ear to ear. Now you can stop being an evil demonic ginger! Ron laughed and thanked him. He had no plan to use the hair dye, but the gift was a moment of laughter. Hermione noticed the label of her second gift. It said, To Mud. She unwrapped the gift and found a book. So you think you're not a wizard, she read. Harry smiled. You're going to be a great wizard, even if you are a mudblood. The book was useless to Hermione, but that's okay. Just like her gift to him, it's the thought that counts. Ron picked up 2 gifts and gave them to Hermione and Harry. Harry ripped the wrapping paper off his, opened the box, and picked up a bag of pills. Ron happily watched as Harry picked up the bag. They're steroids! For Quidditch! Harry thanked him, though he wouldn't be using them. Drugs are bad, and the goal is to make Ron see that too. Hermione opened her gift from Ron and found another bag of pills. Ron again happily watched as she took the bag out of the box. Those are antidepressants! You're way too serious. There was something in Ron's voice that made him sound so innocent even though he was giving away illegal drugs. But it was very thoughtful of him. This would also fall under the category of it's the thought that counts. Hermione saw Ron and Harry's gazes move to her as they waited for their gifts. Hermione picked up 2 carefully wrapped gifts and distributed them to the correct person. Harry quickly unwrapped his and found a beautifully carved wand. I'm going to be the best wizard ever! He ran around the table jumping while waving the wand. This is the best gift I've ever gotten! Hermione chuckled sheepishly. She had just given someone a twig for Christmas. Harry settled down and Ron opened his gift from Hermione. He found a bag with a powdery substance. Drugs? He gasped. No one has ever gotten me drugs before, and in my favorite form, too! Hermione had noticed Ron always had the types of drugs you could inhale. She crushed the sugar pills and put them in a bag. Dudley walked over to their table holding 2 plates that strongly resembled Mount Everest. Hey, Harry. In my latest letter, I told my parents that you're here at Hogwarts. Why would I care, dumb citizen? Oh, no reason. Harry was reminded of why he hates Dudley. Don't you have food to eat, Dudley? Dudley walked off, cackling. They continued to watch his stubby legs actively defy the laws of physics by supporting the rest of him as he moved. He dropped his plates on the table, mashed potatoes splattering a radius of 3 feet, and then shooing the occupants of the seats around him. When they put up a fight, he took out 2 cans of incredibly processed and preserved aerosol cheese that were completely hidden in his blubber. He assaulted the now fleeing students with the cheese. They shook dumbly out of their minds, and Hermione looked down the long table. Why would they use long tables like these? If you're on one side, you'll have to walk all the way around to get to the other side. Harry looked at the tables. I blame Moaning Joanne. Me too, Ron agreed. The next day came, and Hermione was sitting in the common room. Ron met up with her and got her attention. Shouldn't you be getting on the train soon? I don't want to see my parents. You said you'd go as my proxy, Ron whined. I assumed you were joking. How would your parents react if I got off the train instead of you? They would be overjoyed. Really? You obviously don't know my family. They would be happy to have you. Okay. Hermione and Harry went to their respective dormitories and started packing their bags. A long amount of time passed as Harry kept getting distracted by various things. Soon, an owl brought something to Harry. "I didn't know birds could deliver mail," he said as he untied the letter from the owl's leg. His happy expression disappeared as he began to read a letter from his parents. He stopped packing and went to the common room. Ron and Hermione were already there. She noticed Harry wasn't ready to go. "Where are your bags?" Harry looked towards the ground. "I'm not going home this Christmas. My dear Muggle family sent me this letter." He held out the letter to Hermione. She unfolded the note and read it aloud. "Dear Harry, we are deeply sorry, but it will not be possible for you to come home this Christmas. It is too dangerous right now. Sorry again. Love, Mum and Dad." Harry sank into a chair. Hermione refolded the letter and put it down on a table. "I'm sorry, Harry." He stood and picked up the letter. "I'm going to put this in my room. I'll catch up with you later." Hermione and Ron started walking to the train. Ron took out the bag of sugar pills that Hermione gave him and inhaled it. "These drugs are awesome!" "What's better, a Hyper-Ron or a High-Ron?" Hermione chuckled. They approached the bright doorway that would take them outside. Hermione was getting more and more lost in thought. "Why is Harry's home too dangerous right now?" she muttered. Despite being quiet, Ron heard her and tried to offer a suggestion. "Maybe—" "Yeah, I don't know. I hope everything will be okay." They arrived at Hogsmeade Station and waited. Dudley waddled towards them with a tree branch that was so huge it still had leaves on it. "Where's Potter?" "Did you sharpen that?" an alarmed Hermione asked with her eyes wide. "It makes the magic more dangerous." "For everyone else," he cackled. "Where's Potter?" "As if I'd tell you." "Hermione, this is the early 90s, Ron scolded. "That's not quite a thing yet." Hermione ignored Ron. "Do you know about any danger in his town?" "Godric's Hollow?" "Of course not. Why would I know anything about danger?" "That's just silly." Hermione glared at Dudley and stepped towards him. "All right, Dumbly, I'm going to need you to answer my question without laughing. What do you know about danger in Harry's hometown?" Hey, back off. No, I don't know anything about danger anywhere. I'm a very peaceful person." Ron turned to Dudley. "Peaceful? If I remember correctly, you were the one who started the fight at the Quidditch match." Dudley scoffed. "And if I remember correctly, you had just gotten some new drugs and were higher than my great-uncle Sniff." Ron gave an angry glare as he and Hermione watched Dudley run off laughing. "I really don't like him," she glowered. Harry arrived at the train station and walked towards his friends. He decided to make the most of the situation and be happy. He'll be able to hang out with Ron. Hermione boarded the train and saw Ron and Harry wave as the train left the station. Soon Fred and George came to the train car she was in. Hermione turned to look at them. "Looking for Ron?" "Yeah, we were wondering how he was going to try and get out of Christmas this year. But Mum told him if she didn't welcome home 4 students from Hogwarts, she'd drive to Scotland and pick him up herself," George said. "Where is he?" She should have been more specific to avoid loopholes. "He sent me as his proxy." They gave her a confused look. "Seriously?" Fred asked. "Nice," George admired. "Yep." Another boy with red hair walked into the train car. Fred and George seemed to recognize him. "Hey, Percy," George said. Percy walked over to the twins. "I was looking for you. Where's Ron?" "Right here," Fred replied as he called attention to Hermione. "It's true what they say about hair color. Once they change it, you hardly recognize them," George said. "I'm Hermione Granger. I'm Ron's proxy." Percy blinked at her. "That's a little weird," he said finally. The introductions were awkward, but they began to discuss Weasley's no-wheezes, their efforts to get Ron to stop doing drugs. "It's my fault," Percy lamented. "I got into Hogwarts, and then I got the first report card that school had ever seen. I got straight A's even though we were never graded." "We didn't help the problem," Fred sighed. "We got into Hogwarts, too. I guess that was his breaking point." "You can't be responsible for another person's actions," Hermione consoled. She then attempted to change the subject and lift their spirits. "You guys think you're wizards, right?" "I guess," George replied. "But it's not like we're ever taught magic." Percy stared at the ground. "And it always reminds me of what I've done to Ron." It was going to be a long trip if she couldn't start a completely new conversation. The train stopped at King's Cross Station and the 4 got off. Mr. Weasley picked them up and brought them to the Weasley household. No questions arose about Hermione. He evidently didn't want to know why his son had been replaced by some girl he had never met before. As the Weasleys' old car pulled into the driveway, the door to the house flew open and showed a cheerful red-haired woman behind it. It must be Mrs. Weasley. From the outside of the house, Hermione could see the wear and tear. The paint on the siding was chipping, and the house looked almost crooked. They got out of the car and walked to the door. "Welcome back!" She glanced at the group and became more serious when she saw Hermione. "Who are you? And where's Ron?" George smirked. "This is Ron. Say hello, Ron." "Hi, I'm Ron," Hermione greeted. "Tell me this is a joke," Mrs. Weasley breathed. Hermione laughed. "I'm here as his proxy." At once, Mrs. Weasley understood. That boy is too smart for someone who has secret drug stashes at the courthouse. Quite a brilliant loophole, yes, Fred nodded. So, according to the contract you had him sign, you cannot drive to Scotland and get him. She makes 4 returned Hogwarts students. So proud. George grinned. We should be lawyers. Mr. Weasley joined the group at the door. Then you'd run the risk that your brother would drug you at his hearing. Don't remind me of that dreadful day. That's repeated at almost every trial, Mrs. Weasley said faintly. How would that be a risk? Fred snickered. Oh, Fred, Mrs. Weasley scolded. Could we go inside, Mum? Percy asked. It's December and this doorway is crowded. Mrs. Weasley promptly backed away from the door and invited everyone in. This is Hermione Granger, one of Ron's friends, Percy explained. Hermione could have objected to being called his friend, but since she's decided to vacation with his family, she thought it'd be better to just go with it. I'm sorry, dear. It's not your fault Ron. It's nice to meet you, Hermione. I'm Molly Weasley. Hermione was so happy to be hearing her name be used this much. She had been called Mud countless times, and all the professors at Hogwarts called her Miss Granger, not to mention what her family has called her all her life. Mrs. Weasley gave a tour of the house and told Hermione where she'd be sleeping. It was a small house for the size of the family. Most had already gone to Hogwarts, and some had graduated. Hermione listened with a look of astonishment as Mrs. Weasley listed off her 7 children. Only one still lives at home and doesn't go to Hogwarts yet. Ginny Weasley is a year younger than Ron. Hermione couldn't help but wonder if Hagrid had told Ginny about wizardry yet. Is Ginny planning on going to Hogwarts? No, and hopefully she'll be smart enough to know she's not a wizard. Oh, I'm so sorry. You go to Hogwarts, which means— Don't worry, I know I'm not a wizard. I also hope Ginny doesn't start thinking about wizardry. My advice is to keep her away from half-giants, which is wizard for tall hobos. I'll be sure to do that, thank you. You really don't believe in wizardry? Nope, I never have. I also don't do drugs. Your parents must be so proud of you. Unfortunately, my parents aren't, well, good. That's why I'm here and not with them right now. I'm so sorry to hear that. You're always welcome here. Hermione smiled and thanked her. She finally had a family, a good family, a nice, sane, kind, and loving family. Dinner time came and the family sat down to eat. The brown wooden table was very long and it barely fit in the kitchen. Mr. Weasley sat at one end of the table and Mrs. Weasley sat on the other. Fred, George, and Percy shared one side of the table, while Hermione and Ginny shared the other side. Even though they didn't know much about Hermione, they accepted her into their home. Each family member cared about her thoughts and feelings. Hermione made sure to return the kindness as she listened to everyone as they talked. She didn't feel like an outsider. She felt like she belonged. Chapter 5. Power Trip. Back at Hogwarts, Harry and Ron could do whatever they wanted since school was now a Hermione-free zone. Sadly, Dudley also left, so that prevented one of the things Harry wanted to do. Instead, Ron and Harry began to run back to the building. Harry stopped dead in his tracks after he heard a noise. Whoo! Harry looked around and didn't see anyone, but he kept hearing the noise. Whoo! Whoo! Harry frantically looked around and found something half buried in the snow. He walked over to it and noticed it was soft. He started digging it out of the snow and discovered it was an owl. Aw! Ron, look at this owl! Ron turned to look at the white owl. Aw, owls are so cool. Harry picked up the bird. I want to keep him! They decided to bring the owl into the castle. Harry got a blanket and wrapped it around the bird. Mud would never let me have a pet owl. Who else should I show my new pet to? Moaning Joanne, Ron suggested. They run down the halls of Hogwarts and look for the bathroom. They got lost again since they had only been there once before. Finally, they arrived in the bathroom. Mud would never let us talk to Moaning Joanne again. They walked into the bathroom and found Moaning Joanne crying. She looked towards them as they approached. Here to make a Polyjuice potion? She asked with hope in her eyes. What? No. Harry's here to show you his new pet. Harry walked towards Moaning Joanne and showed her the white owl. Her eyes lit up. Hedwig! This story's not ruined after all! You have Hedwig! Who's Hedwig? I'm planning on naming this owl. Owl. Moaning Joanne cried harder. Ron pet the owl. Don't you think you should come up with something more original? Name it Hedwig! Moaning Joanne cried. For the love of Harry Potter, please name the owl Hedwig! Fine, I'll name him Hedwig. It's a cool name. I get it, too. It's because he has fur on his head and it looks like a wig. You're an idiot. Well, we'll just leave then, citizen. Harry and Ron turned to leave the bathroom. And don't come back! You'll just make me even sadder! Harry and Ron brought Hedwig back to their dormitory. Harry helped the owl finish drying off from the snow. Soon he started flying around the room. The owl perched on Harry's shoulder and was content to just stay there. Harry pet Hedwig. I'm a pirate! Arg! Harry, Ron, and Hedwig decided to run through the halls of Hogwarts. Hedwig flew after them as they ran. Most of the teachers went home for Christmas, so no one was around. Harry and Ron were free. They didn't have any rules to follow. They ended up in the cafeteria and decided to eat some lunch. They walked in and saw Hagrid standing on a stepladder next to an evergreen tree replacing a bulb on a string of Christmas lights. Ron and Harry started walking towards him. "Hey, Hagrid!" Ron said as he waved. Hagrid gave a friendly smile and said hello. The newly replaced bulb began to glow red, and the giant continued to wrap the tree in the rest of the colorful lights. "You got an owl?" Hagrid asked as he climbed down to the floor and walked towards them. Harry showed the white owl to Hagrid. "Yup, this is Hedwig. The creepy bathroom girl helped me name him." Ron left to go get some lunch for him and Harry. Hagrid pet the owl. "Pets are a big responsibility. Are you sure you can take care of this magical creature?" "Oh yeah, I had a pet rock and I took great care of him." "What happened to him?" Harry looked down. "He disappeared. I think someone kidnapped him." Hagrid put his large hand on Harry's shoulder. "I'm sorry, Harry. I hope you find him." "Where do I look? We haven't had a clue for months." Ask yourself who would want to take your rock. Then investigate." "No one knew I had a pet rock." "Well, I guess the only thing to do is search. Turn Hogwarts upside down. The rock has to be somewhere." Ron and Harry ate lunch with Hagrid and then began their search. For the rest of Christmas break, they searched most of the rooms of Hogwarts. Unfortunately, they came out of each room empty-handed. On Christmas Day, Rock was still missing, and Harry couldn't be with his parents because they're in some kind of danger. Discouraged, they agreed to spend Christmas Day with Moaning Joanne. Maybe they'd start a club of sadness. But their spirits were lifted as they walked to the bathroom and bumped into Hagrid again. "Hagrid!" Ron said, approaching him. "Shouldn't you be with your family?" Harry asked. "But I am. Everyone at Hogwarts is me family." Hagrid gave a kind smile. "Then you should come celebrate with us," Ron exclaimed. Harry eagerly nodded. "Yeah, we're going to help out with Moaning Joanne." "That's a great idea. Very thoughtful." He joined them as they walked down a corridor of the 6th floor. "Where's your other friend? I believe you call her Mud?" "She's spending Christmas break with my family as my proxy." Hagrid looked confused by the arrangement, but just rolled with it. "Did you get presents from her?" Harry took out the carved tree branch. "I got this amazing wand." Ron started jumping. "And I got drugs." "Good, good." Hagrid showed a big smile. They arrived in the pale beige bathroom where Moaning Joanne was sobbing at the window. She turned as the door opened and everyone walked in. Moaning Joanne moaned. "Why are you here?" she sobbed. "Can I at least have some peace and quiet on Christmas?" Harry walked towards her. "Nope, we are here to make you happy." "Your very presence is making me more miserable than I was before," she hissed. "Ah, that reminds me." Ron reached into his coat and pulled out some bags. "I brought you some drugs. I got you some hallucinogens and some antidepressants. Happy Christmas!" Hagrid took the drugs Ron was holding. "Don't worry, I brought enough for everyone." Harry struck another superhero pose. "Just say no, citizen children." Hagrid looked at Harry and then asked Ron something. He knows he's talking to a wall, right? Before Ron could even shrug, Harry turned on the spot. "Drugs are bad, citizen." "Come on, Moaning Joanne. He's lying. Don't you want to be cool?" "Yes. That's why I wrote 7 best-selling novels. They were made into movies." Harry leaned towards Ron and whispered something to him. "Did she sniff some of those hallucinogens when I was talking to that wall?" "No. Maybe she's getting high by osmosis," Ron whispered back to Harry. "Is such a thing possible?" "I don't know, but if she figured out the secret, I need to know." "What are you whispering about?" Hagrid asked. Ron looked at Hagrid. "Don't you worry about it, Broseph." Hagrid tried to bring things back to a sane level, and they started to have a fun little party. They played party games, and no one except Ron inhaled any drugs. Soon the vacation was over, and Hermione came back to Hogwarts. Ron and Harry welcomed Hermione back when she got off the train at Hogsmeade Station. Harry could tell she was happy they came. "Did you have fun, Mud?" "Yes. Ron, your family's amazing. We had a family game night, we made paper hats, we wrote letters to Father Christmas and then burned them." "Did you lace them with anything?" Ron interrupted. "No. Do you usually?" "Of course I do! Then I inhale the smoke and Christmas gets 100 times more awesome." "Then I can bear all the lame family traditions." "They're not lame," Hermione protested. "Anyway, what did you guys do while I was gone?" "We looked for Rock and hung out with Hagrid and Moaning Joanne," Harry answered. "I told you not to talk to her. You didn't give her any drugs, did you?" Ron inhaled some more drugs. "Relax. Hagrid took them away before she could take them." "Of course," Hermione sighed. Soon the Christmas trees were taken down, along with the wreaths and other Christmas decorations. The snow melted and the grass began growing again. Spring had approached and brought flowers and warmer weather with it. Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat in wand safety bubble-wrapping some twigs. Rain was drizzling down on Hogwarts, but it was still warm, so some windows were open. The class was silent. The only noise was from bubble wrap, wind, and rain hitting the ground after falling from the sky or from rolling off the roof. Ron raised his hand. The professor had learned his lesson on the first day of school. He didn't go near Ron and even backed up a little. Still, it was his duty as a professor to answer his question.
Yes, Ron?
Ron put his hand down. I want to apologize for what I did on the first day of school. I got you a gift. Ron held out an apple to the teacher. He slowly walked towards Ron and accepted the gift. He took a bite, and a moment later he collapsed on the ground. They never learn. Why did you drug our teacher again? Hermione asked. Because he thought I wouldn't be able to. It's a principle of the matter. Besides, he should thank me. I used a lot of drugs on him. Harry walked to the front of the class. PSA, don't accept anything from Ron, citizens. Harry went back to his seat. You want to hang out with Moaning Joanne? I promised her last time that I wouldn't let you go near her again, Hermione said sternly. Ron walked to the professor's desk and sat on it. That doesn't mean anything. You've never wanted us to go near her, and we've met her more than 4 times already. Fine, Mud. I just wanted her to be less lonely, but whatever. I'll just sleep at my desk instead. Harry put his head down and went to sleep. Most students in the class started conversations with friends, others fell asleep, and some left the class altogether. Ron inhaled some drugs and had a weird conversation with Hermione. He almost fell out of his chair as he made strange noises. Do you see the flying butterfly? No, Ron, I don't. Really? 'Cause I see it. It's over there doing drugs. Eventually, Harry woke up. He lifted his head and gasped. I had a dream! I saw a mirror. It's somewhere and it needs to be saved. It's in trouble. It's just a dream, Hermione assured. It's a wizard vision. You wouldn't understand, Mud. Ron stood up. It must be a prophecy. We've got to find that mirror. Harry walked to the door. First, we need to go to our dorms to get ready for our quest. Then, we'll meet in the common room to set out. Ron was right behind him, and Hermione reluctantly followed. She arrived in her room and sat down. They would be looking for a mirror. They don't need any special equipment. There was a brown wooden nightstand next to her bed that had a flat surface on top and another towards the bottom. Hermione noticed the book Harry had given her for Christmas on the bottom surface. She had put it there a while ago so it would be out of the way. She looked at the cover and noticed the author. Rubeus Hagrid, she whispered. Anything to make children believe they're wizards. She picked up the book and moved it under her bed. She then stood and made her way to the common room. They met up and walked around Hogwarts looking for a mirror. A staircase was ahead of them, and they saw Dumbledore tumbling down. He stood up and noticed the 3 students. Aha! Good afternoon. Harry walked towards Dumbledore. We have a question regarding a mirror, Professor Citizen. Dumbledore smoothed his long silver beard. A mirror? I have a mirror. It's called the Mirror of Erised. Ron hopped forward. Where is it me? I mean, where is I? Wait, where? What? Where is it? Harry asked. It's in the basement. I keep it in the closet of the Room of Requirement. It can show the viewer's most wanted desire. That's what I tell people anyway. Don't break it. I keep it far away from staircases for a reason, you know. Thank you, bearded citizen. Harry and Ron started skipping away. Hermione stayed because she had a question for Dumbledore. There's something I've been curious of for a while. Do you happen to know why a student of Ravenclaw named Dudley Dursley was trying out for the Gryffindor Quidditch team at the beginning of the year? Dumbledore thought for a moment. I admire your curiosity, so I will tell you. It is a secret, though. Dudley Dursley isn't actually part of any house, so he's effectively part of all the houses. Why? Hermione asked. Well, Dudley is considered a lost cause. Upon learning of his own magical capabilities, he was able to convince even his parents that they're wizards. He still needed a place to live, so he put him in a Ravenclaw dormitory. He's not on any other list, though, so they can't disqualify him from different house activities. In hindsight, that was very dumb of us. Why not just send him back home? We thought it would be best to keep him away from the outside world and impressionable people. We still have meetings and votes on whether or not to keep him away from other students. Hermione laughed. We wouldn't want a society of people who actually believe magic is real. Dumbledore did not join in her laughter, but rather became more serious, maybe even a tad insulted. Either way, a whimsical smile grew on his face. There is much you do not know, Hermione. Why does everyone know my name except for the people who actually spend time with me? Dumbledore floated away, and Hermione went to find Harry and Ron. She followed them to the basement, and they found a big entrance. On the left wall beside the doorway, letters were carved into the stone. It said, Room of Requirement. They walked in and looked around. The huge room had a fireplace and a big chandelier. The ceiling existed high above the echoing room that was void of most items. Only one thing was in the room. Ah! Ron yelled. 3-headed dog! Hermione looked at what Ron was seeing. Ron, the dog has 1 head, and also it's a statue. Ron threw a bag of drugs in the sculpture's mouth. Then he ran into the statue and tipped it over. He took a broken piece and started stabbing it. Die, three-headed dog demon! Harry and Hermione watched the attack unfold. They shook their heads and turned away. As he continued to break the bronze sculpture, they found a closet and opened the door. It was a walk-in closet with a lot of space. Inside the closet was a large mirror. Dear mirror citizen, what is my greatest wish? Harry waited expectantly. It's showing my parents and I. I do want to see them again, and I hope they're safe. Hermione looked at Harry. I'm surprised. That's really deep. What do you see? I see nothing. You must be happy with what you have. I didn't expect that from someone who robbed a candy car. I didn't rob the candy car. I only planned to. Harry tilted his head at her. Okay, I started robbing the candy car, but I didn't take anything out of the car. Ron walked into the room. Hey, you found the mirror! What do you see? Harry asked. Ron stared at the mirror. I see everyone joining my drug revolution. Sorry, Ron, but I hope your dream never comes true, Hermione said. Harry looked around the mirror for trouble while Ron took a nap in the corner. Hermione eventually fell asleep as well. Hours passed and Harry figured out why he had dreamt about the mirror. He woke Hermione and Ron to tell them. The mirror reached out to me because it was lonely. My work here is done. Hermione and Ron stood up. They left the closet and went back to the room of requirement. Ron glanced at the broken statue. Someone didn't like that statue. Ron? Hermione started. Yeah? Never mind. They walked through the room and went back to the hallway. Harry brought his hand to his forehead. My spidey sense is tingling. What? Hermione asked. I got a scar on my forehead when I was a baby, and sometimes it hurts. I'm sure I'm sensing something. Hermione looked at him as they walked. Is it from being dropped on your head? Because that would make a lot of sense. Ron looked at his forehead. Oh, cool! It looks like a lightning bolt! No way! Were you struck by lightning? I actually don't know how I got it. They kept walking and went back to Gryffindor Tower. Chapter 6. Infiltrating the Snake People's Lair. Soon the grass around Hogwarts became bright green and the temperatures became even warmer. Classes had finished and the students would be getting on the train to leave the next day. They sat in the common room and noticed Harry's sad expression. If Rock is here, I'll be leaving him for the entire summer. I can't believe we still haven't found him. We've looked everywhere. We should check Slytherin, Ron exclaimed. We've never looked there. Hermione finished reading the last part of her book and closed it. Why would it be there? Duh, it's Slytherin, home of the snakes, Ron answered. It's home of the biology students, Hermione corrected. That's not what I heard, Ron warned. Are you saying there's trouble at the House of Slytherin, citizen? Ron doesn't know what he's talking about. People in Slytherin are very studious. They've cured 8 snake diseases in the past year alone, Hermione informed. I bet they're using evil to get their results, Harry said. To cure disease? Hermione replied skeptically. If you can come up with any scenario of how that would work and why they would do that, I'll start taking your statements seriously. There's no time, Mud! We need to get to Slytherin! They walked to Harry and Ron's dormitory to prepare for the mission. Harry looked around for equipment to use. An invisibility cloak! He exclaimed. Hermione stared at the item draped over his hands. Harry, that's a ratty old blanket. Nah, that's totally an invisibility cloak, Ron confirmed. Hermione picked up a paper off the ground. I guess that makes this a magical map that shows the location of everyone at Hogwarts. No way! That's awesome! Ron shouted, grabbing the paper while Harry dropped the blanket and rushed over to see the magic map. Seriously? Hermione said as Ron and Harry stared at the blank paper. I see it! Mud, this is such a great find, Harry said. With my ability to talk to snakes and all these magical items, this'll be easy. Hermione looked at Harry. Your ability to talk to snakes? I can speak Sneck. It's the language the snakes speak. Ron looked out the window. Did anyone else hear Moaning Joanne just now? Sneck isn't a language, Hermione stated. Harry hissed. Ron listened to Harry and then turned to Hermione. You do not want to know what he just said. You speak Sneck too? Harry exclaimed. You know it, Broseph. Harry hissed. Ron replied. Hermione sighed before walking across the room to pick up the old blanket. She held it over her arm and moved to the door. Let's get this over with. Harry and Ron followed her out the door and set out for the House of Slytherin. Harry pulled the blanket around himself and told everyone that he was invisible. Ron carried the map and Hermione led the way. This left her with a lot of time to think about her situation. I'm breaking into a biologist house with my probation officer, who thinks he's a superhero, and his druggy friend who may or may not be on probation as well. And that's not even addressing any wizardry, she murmured. They arrived at the basement stairs and began to descend them. Then they traveled down a dark hallway. The ceiling was high with a small window above them at every 10th step. The ceiling curved at the top and sent golden rays down from the windows, but it didn't provide a lot of light for the grimy green hall. They walked in the center of the hallway, hoping not to run into anything hiding in the dark. They continued to walk and saw a book of matches and a candle illuminated by the window above it. "Ooh, fire!" Harry said before approaching the matches. Hermione rushed after him and took the matches from him. Then she took out a match and was about to strike it, but she was interrupted by Ron. "I don't know, I have a bad feeling about this. A glowing book of matches? Seems sketchy." Maybe, Hermione wondered. But of course they would put the matches and a candle in a spot where they could see them. In the middle of a long hallway? Ron challenged. They could have... or maybe... She looked at them in the light of the window. They don't seem dangerous. And there couldn't be a spell on them. "Are you sure?" Harry asked. "Wizards can put spells on anything. I should know." "Like tables to make them into cages?" Hermione asked. "Exactly," Harry replied. "I think we're good then." Hermione struck the match and lit the candle. "No explosions so far." "Explosions?" Harry repeated. "Is the candle going to explode?" Ron asked. Hermione rolled her eyes. "I was exaggerating. There's no way this candle will explode. Unless, of course, someone coated it in gasoline." Harry and Ron gasped. Relax. If something was going to happen, it would have by now. They continued to walk until Harry brought something to their attention. "I have to go to the bathroom." "Is it an emergency?" Hermione asked. "No, I can wait." They kept venturing down the long hallway. "What's the plan?" Hermione inquired in the flickering orange light of the candle. Harry bent his arms. "We break into Slytherin, locate Rock, and then steal him back." "How do we steal him back?" Ron asked. "I thought we'd ask Mud. She seems to know a lot about theft and robbery," Harry said with an evil gleam. "I'm not a robber!" Hermione shouted. "Then tell me why you're on probation," Harry directed. "Okay, fine, yes, I attempted to rob the candy car. But that's not me. I'm not a thief or a robber." The candlelight showed her sorrowful expression. Ron was about to make another joke, but he backed off after realizing this conversation wasn't quite as funny to her. "Oh, shoot, I forgot to take some drugs this morning," Ron said instead. "That's a good thing. You'll be wise enough to remain drug-free for the rest of your long and happy life," Harry said in his superhero voice. "You're not addicted, are you?" Hermione asked earnestly. "No, that's not it." His voice trailed off. They approached a large wooden door at the end of the hallway. Hermione stepped towards it and turned the doorknob. She pulled the door open with a creak, and the three of them went through the doorway. They walked down a set of spiral stone stairs that seemed to go on forever. The staircase didn't have a wall around the center, so you could look to see lower floors. "How deep underground is Slytherin?" Hermione grumbled. "I'd rather jump down the center than walk down all these stairs," Harry whined as he moved towards the center of the staircase. Hermione grabbed his arm and pulled him back. "Trust me, you don't." "Why not?" "You need a broomstick to fly, otherwise you'll just fall," Hermione replied. "Oh," Harry responded, a little disappointed. "I hope there's a bathroom at the bottom." They kept moving and soon reached the bottom of the staircase. They entered a new hallway, though this one was a short dead end. They began to search for a door. "Do you think Rock is okay?" Harry asked. Instead of making fun of him, Hermione decided to respond with kindness. "I'm sure he's fine. We'll find him, wherever he is." "Yeah, then we'll make sure he never gets stolen again," Ron said, also trying to console his friend. "Thanks," Harry said quietly. "Now, where is the entrance?" Hermione asked, bringing the candlelight around the walls of the hallway. There were no doors, only the staircase that brought them there. "There's a painting," Ron informed, feeling around a wall near the staircase. Hermione walked over to view the painting. The candlelight showed a painting of a snake. "What could the password be?" Harry whispered. Hermione looked all around the painting. "Hinges?" she mumbled. She went to the other side and pulled the left edge of the painting. The framed art opened like a door and revealed a button behind it. She hesitated before pressing the button. A moment passed before the stone wall separated and created a new passageway. They took a few steps before the candlelight illuminated another door. Hermione opened it and they entered the Slytherin common room. The walls of the room were the same grimy green color of the hallways. There was a fireplace in the middle of the room with a snake carved into the stone above the mantel. The furniture looked old and uncomfortable. Suddenly, someone appeared behind the front desk. The three were startled by this, as the original plan was to not be seen. The same boy with light blonde hair they met on the train was standing in front of them. They couldn't find any words to explain what they were doing there. "Welcome," the boy said with his eyes wide. "Huh?" Hermione asked, surprised of how happy the boy was. "You must be here to see our snake habitats. Oh, that makes me so happy. Welcome to the Slytherin Snake Research and Habitats." Definitely, citizen. That is exactly why we're here. We are not planning to steal anything at all, Harry announced. Hermione punched him in the arm to get him to stop talking. It's our friend's birthday, and we decided to take him to see some snakes. They're his favorite animal. Hermione gestured to Ron. Ron reluctantly played along. Uh-huh. They are indeed. They're just so, I can't even find the words to describe how cool they are. And she loves snakes, too. She just loves to cuddle with them. Yes, Hermione replied while scowling at Ron well outside the snake boy's view. Cuddling with snakes is my favorite activity. Unfortunately, the snake cuddling room is being cleaned today, the blonde boy informed. Well, she can come back another day, Ron smirked. Of course. The blonde boy walked across the room to get some supplies. Guys, Harry said quietly. What is it? Hermione asked. I really have to go to the bathroom. Ron and Hermione glanced around the room for a bathroom. They noticed signs hanging from the ceiling directing visitors to different areas. That one says public bathroom, Ron pointed. Harry scurried off in the direction of the sign. They stood for a moment waiting for Harry. We need to use fake names, Ron whispered. Why? Hermione asked. Because this is Slytherin! If they have our names, who knows what they'll do? People in Slytherin aren't excluded from our classes. He probably knows our names already. Harry hasn't learned your name, and he's known you personally for the entire school year. They curtailed their conversation as the snake boy walked back towards them. He handed out some pamphlets and maps. My name is Draco Malfoy, and I'll be guiding you through our snake habitats today. Thank you, Ron said. I'm Dawn, this is Hermione, and our other friend Derry is in the bathroom. Malfoy left to sit at the front desk while they waited for Harry. Hermione? Hermione whispered. Your name was weird in its original form. Hermione isn't any weirder. Harry returned from the bathroom and rejoined the group. Hello, citizens! Ready to go? They heard a voice ask. Ah! Hermione jumped before looking behind her. Malfoy had approached the group so quickly and quietly that they didn't notice him. Oops. I didn't mean to startle you. That's okay. Can we start the tour? Hermione asked. They set out to look at the snakes. They went through a doorway and entered a large room. The walls were lined with habitats. Each breed of snake had its own habitat. The surroundings of the breeds greatly differed. Some habitats had special heating or cooling systems to make the climate better for the snakes. Other habitats had different vegetation. The room had many biology students walking around and observing the slithering snakes. They all wore white lab coats and most held clipboards. The rest were in habitats weighing or feeding the snakes. Malfoy started talking, but no one listened. They weren't there to see the snakes, after all. Malfoy bounced around the room with the three in tow. He droned on and on. Blah, 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 feed them 3 times a day. Blah, 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 super scaly. Blah, 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 glass doesn't usually disappear, but we can't say it's never happened. Eventually, Malfoy stopped talking and asked if anyone had any questions. I do, Hermione volunteered. This is quite extravagant. Who organizes this whole thing? That would be the head of the biology program, Professor Snape. Any other questions? Harry was the next to speak. Where do you keep your valuables, citizen? Hermione and Ron's eyes widened as they heard Harry's question. Ha ha! That's such a funny joke! Right, Derry? She asked, nudging Harry. Yes, Harry responded. Oh, I certainly enjoy comedy, but I would hate for someone to steal from us. It wouldn't end well for anyone. Snakes are very protective of their things. Well, if we know Derry, we know that he makes jokes that shouldn't be taken seriously in any capacity, Ron said with the same nervous laugh as Hermione. Yeah, definitely, Dawn. Remember at the funeral he made that joke and then no one ever said anything about it or even remembered what he said? I can remember that, but I definitely can't remember what lame joke he said, Ron replied. There was an intense silence before Malfoy asked if they wanted to see a snake feeding. They agreed and followed him to a habitat. They stood at the glass and listened as Malfoy explained. You see, when the snakes are hungry, they will simply start looking for small animals, such as mice, rabbits, and badgers. Once they find their prey, they curl into a coil. After they target their prey, they spring and wrap their long, scaly body around it, slowly suffocating the animal. Then they swallow their prey whole and digest it slowly. Terrified, they backed away from the glass of the habitat before hearing a loud thud. A door flew open, and a man with longish black hair and black eyes drifted around the snake habitats and down the aisles of the room. A small bat sat on his shoulder. "I heard we have guests." His bored, monotone voice echoed around the room as every student stopped what they were doing to hear what he was saying. "Yes, we do," Malfoy said as the black-haired man walked towards them. "I'm Professor Severus Snape," he introduced. "I teach these prestigious students about these slithering creatures." Ron attempted to introduce himself. "Did you tell them how much venom our basilisks have?" Snape asked Malfoy. "Yes, sir." "Did you show them how snakes devour their prey?" "Of course, sir." "Did you show them how protective snakes are to their kin?" "Not yet, sir." Snape turned towards Hermione, Harry, and Ron. "Tisk, tisk. Get to it, then." The three followed Malfoy into another room. It was a quiet place. The room was much smaller than the one they were just in. The walls were a gross green color, and it had a smaller habitat with several small white eggs and a grown snake sitting in a nest. Two students watched over the nest and took notes of what the snake was doing. There was a faint sound in the room. "Is that jazz music?" Ron asked. "Yes," one of the students answered. "We're gathering data about the effects of jazz music on baby snakes." "It's just one experiment. We are doing a lot more groundbreaking research in addition to this," Malfoy informed. "Do students only learn from observations done here, or do they also do bookwork?" Hermione asked. "We also learn from our magnificent library," Malfoy said as he led everyone into a large room that was lined with books. "I only read comic books," Harry said loudly. "Then perhaps we should go back to the snake exhibits?" Malfoy suggested. "Oh, Derry doesn't know what he's saying," Hermione started. "He actually loves reading. In fact, if we could, we'd like to read here on our own for a while." "Of course," Malfoy answered before he promptly left the room, letting the door fall shut. "What are we doing here, Mud?" Harry asked. They would never show us a boring library on their tour. We would have been stuck wherever snakes are. Now, we get some time to investigate a place where students spend a lot of their time. And we're not stuck with a guide, either. "There's that robber wisdom coming through for us," Harry exclaimed. "Again, I'm not a robber." She walked to a locked door and pulled a bobby pin from behind her ear. "I didn't know you keep bobby pins in your hair," Harry commented as Hermione eyed the lock. "Yeah, in case I have to pick a—" "I'm not a robber!" Using the pin, she started picking the lock. "We haven't had any time to investigate this room. We're already leaving?" Ron asked. "Yes, no one visits the library, not by choice anyway. And if we, Gryffindors, got into the library that easily, it wouldn't be a good place to hide stolen goods or valuable items." "Mud, you could write a book with all this robber knowledge." Hermione groaned as she opened the door. "I'm not a robber, I'm just cultured." She tucked the bobby pin back in her hair. "Cultured in robbery," Ron teased. They walked into another hallway, happy to see it was well lit with actual lights. The walls were lined with shiny gray stone, and there was a green rug extending the entire distance of the hallway. They traveled around for a while and started seeing other students. They mostly saw people wearing lab coats, but at one point they saw a group of people wearing green and silver snake costumes. They walked in a single-file line and seemed to be hissing. Hermione instructed Harry and Ron to keep their heads down and avoid eye contact as they passed by. They continued to aimlessly walk around the halls of Slytherin. Then someone ducked out of a room and appeared in front of them. "Oh, hi!" they greeted. "Hello, citizen," Harry replied. The student took off running. "Let's follow him!" Ron exclaimed as they started chasing after him. They were on his tail and were led to a dormitory. It looked just like Harry and Ron's except for the color palette. This room was silver and gray, while their dormitory was scarlet and gold. They entered the room, making the boy they followed even more frightened. "Have no fear, citizen. We wish no harm to you." Something on the dresser caught Harry's attention. It was Rock. "You stole Rock! I will end you!" Hermione and Ron pulled Harry back and tried to keep him from hurting the boy. "Why'd you steal Rock?" Ron asked. "I'm sorry!" the boy squeaked. "Someone dared me to steal something from a Gryffindor dormitory. If I had known the rock was this important, I would have taken something else. I love snakes, but everyone was making fun of me because I'm not a snake expert yet. I just wanted to fit in." "No excuses. Prepare to die," Harry yelled as he tried to get his wand. Hermione grabbed the twig from him. "Murder is not the answer. You've got Rock back, and I'm sure he's learned his lesson." "I have! I'll never steal anything ever again!" the boy cried. Ron dragged Harry out of the room with Rock. "Stay out of trouble, okay?" Hermione directed before leaving the room. They found their way back to the library and then went to the Slytherin common room. They found Malfoy at the front desk. "We've got to go, but thanks for the tour," Ron said. Come back any time. Tell your friends. Hermione retrieved the candle from where she left it and lit it again. They exited through the stone passageway and went down the hall. They climbed the spiral staircase and started walking down the long hallway. I can't believe Rock was actually in Slytherin, Hermione reflected. Of all the places and all the people who could have stolen him. Jerk-faced kid stole Rock, Harry grumbled. Cheer up, Harry. Rock's here now, isn't he? Ron said, trying to make Harry less grumpy. You're right, he is, Harry said as he looked at his pet. Is anyone going to tell me why I was being called Derry earlier? I'll tell you when you learn my name, Hermione hissed. I guess I'll never know, Harry replied. It's because we had to use fake names. We all replaced the first letter of our names with D's, Ron answered. Ron, now he has no motivation to learn my name, Hermione scolded. Harry shook his head. But I already know your name. It's Mud. See, he's never gonna learn, Ron said. They continued walking to Gryffindor Tower, but were stopped and whisked into the cafeteria by a large group of students. There was excitement in the air as everyone sat down with their house. Soon the chatter of the crowd calmed down and they watched Dumbledore enter the room. He was smoothing his beard and adjusting his clothes. He stood in the center of the room and began to speak. My apologies for my appearance. I just fell down the stairs. Again. Anyway, today is the long-awaited House Championship. Most of the first-year students probably don't know what it is since we had to cut its marketing budget. The House Championship is our annual award ceremony for the house with the most house points. The winning team will get the House Cup. This year is the first year that Slytherin is out of the competition. They're too studious. They've won every year since Hogwarts was established. Dumbledore continued on to talk about the history of the award. I hope we win, Harry whispered. I don't see how, Hermione whispered back. Our year doesn't even know what a house point is. Maybe a point is equal to a kilo of drugs, Ron suggested in a whisper. In that case, I'd be the winner for sure. Another professor rolled a snare drum to Dumbledore. The award goes to... Dumbledore picked up the drumsticks and started a drum roll. Hufflepuff! He handed the award to the head of the house as they cheered. Maybe next year, Hermione consoled. Definitely next year, Harry exclaimed. I'll do anything to win that award for Gryffindor. Dumbledore went over some of the things Hufflepuff did to earn their points. Harry listened carefully and started grasping the idea of house points. They're given to you if you do good things. Harry's a superhero. This'll be easy. His mistake was not bragging about all the things he did this year. He needs to report them and get points. He also needs to do at least one really good thing. What could it be, though? Everyone was happily talking and discussing their plans to win the award next year. Dumbledore called for everyone's attention again. Ahem. I was just informed of some terrible news. Can someone dim the lights? Since the lights could not be dimmed, the room became pitch black. Well, this isn't good. Could I have a spotlight? A few professors turned on flashlights and pointed them at Dumbledore. Ah, that's better. Students of Hogwarts, your fellow student Dudley Dursley of Ravenclaw is dead. A few gasps were heard from people who surely did not know him, though even for those who had known him, it was still shocking news. Hermione glared suspiciously at Harry, who quickly noticed her stare. I didn't do it! Ron matched Hermione's suspicious glare and aimed it at her. You didn't like Dudley either. You're as much of a suspect as Harry. I wouldn't kill him. I wasn't the one fighting him in the middle of a Quidditch match. So? Ron asked. By that logic, Dudley would have killed Harry, especially since Dudley was the one who started the fight. That doesn't make any sense! Guys, Harry said, trying to get their attention. None of us did it. None of us would. The point is, someone or something killed Dudley. Whether it was an accident, an illness, or a murder, it will give us a ton of points if we solve this! You're right, Hermione started. Let's see if we can find a crime scene. The three noticed the food around them and remembered that they had to stay. They remained seated and Dumbledore spoke again. The train will be coming tomorrow morning. See you all next year. All the students of Hogwarts started eating. When the meal was complete and their stomachs were full, Harry and friends tried to escape the cafeteria. They were too slow and the crowd swallowed them as a second dessert. Since there wasn't enough time to pack and look for a crime scene, they decided to solve the mystery next year. The next morning, they brought their trunks to the train station and put them on the baggage car. Harry brought Rock with him as carry-on. They all sat in the train car and talked. It was a lot different from when they were first together on this train. Everything started when Hermione tried to rob the candy car. Hagrid was right. She didn't want candy. The group she had been talking to wanted candy. Just like the boy who stole Harry's rock, she just wanted some friends. She tried to deny it, but that's exactly what she got. Even though Harry and Ron are eccentric at best, she'll finally admit it. Ron and Harry are not only her friends, but her best friends. Fade out. Roll credits. The end.